Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Ripe here again with another absolutely horrifying neighbor story. Imagine enjoying a peaceful afternoon in your backyard, thinking you're safe only to discover hidden cameras spying on your family. Worse yet, the footage is being uploaded online for strangers to watch. That's exactly what happened in today's story. But instead of letting this creep get away with it, the homeowner fights back in the most satisfying way possible. Let's jump right into it. So before I jump into the story, let me provide you with some background. First, I live with my husband Donald, our daughter Rena 16, and our son Ethan 8 in a peaceful suburban neighborhood. It is nothing crazy, but we do have a charming little backyard pool that has become our family's mini sanctuary. Almost every summer afternoon spent at home finds us there swimming, grilling, roasting marshmallows, and just enjoying each other's company. It is a special place for us and for our kiddos. It is home. But moving on to the actual story, our next-door neighbor Max moved in 2 years ago and initially appeared to be harmless. A single man in what I guess to be his mid-40s, he kept to himself for the most part. He engaged with us if we came across him, but normally it was just standard small talk. No flags being raised whatsoever. Sure, he was a little eccentric, wearing mismatched clothes and displaying quirky habits, but I honestly just chalked it up to social awkwardness. However, as time went on, his behavior began to feel increasingly unsettling. He seemed to have an uncanny knack for being outside whenever we were, even if it was a strange time to be out. If we dared to venture into the pool, Max would instantly materialize in his yard, often with little more than an excuse to linger near our shared fence, whether it was watering his plants or trimming the hedges. It felt strange, but I tried to justify it. A quirky neighbor was better than a reclusive one, right? After a while though, his comments started escalating beyond the realm of polite small talk. One day, as Rena was sunbathing in her swimsuit on a lounge chair, he leaned over the fence, his eyes gleaming, and said, "You're going to break hearts when you're older." Such a beautiful girl. Rena was 15 at the time. Her laugh did not mask the discomfort I sensed in her expression, and she did not even protest as I ushered her inside under the guise of finishing some summer reading. Another time, he again leaned over the fence and made a comment about Ethan's swimmer build, saying that he looked like a real natural athlete with all those developing muscles. Honestly, that made my skin crawl. Even still, I resisted the urge to leap to conclusions. It's not like he had crossed any lines, at least not that I had seen. And by the way, guys, I'm not sure if I would agree with that. I feel like the neighbor has already crossed quite a few lines here, but let me know what you think. Either way, I started to keep a more watchful eye on him, particularly when my children were outside. A few weeks ago, though, everything changed. It was one of those blissfully sunny Saturdays, one where my family would normally be out swimming. Rena had come outside to help me tidy up around the pool area. As she was rearranging some fallen planters by the fence, she suddenly called out, "Mom, what is this?" I turned to see her holding what looked like a rock, but as I approached, I realized there was something disturbingly out of place about it. My heart sank as I took a closer look. This was no ordinary rock. Embedded in its surface was a lens, maybe a third of an inch, small enough to be unnoticeable. Panic immediately surged through me, but I maintained my composure for Rena's sake. "Let's check the rest of the yard," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. We combed through every corner of our backyard, and what we found left me feeling both furious and violated. There were cameras everywhere. One was cleverly disguised as a cutesy garden light, another was hidden in a bush, and one even dangled precariously from a tree, positioned to capture a perfect angle of the pool. It was evident that someone had gone to great lengths to invade our privacy, and it was not hard to guess who was behind it. I sent Rena inside, trying my best not to panic in front of her, and called Donald, who rushed home from work. Together we decided to remove one of the cameras and seek help understanding what we were actually dealing with. Fortunately, we have a family friend named Enrio who is a real whiz with technology. He's one of my husband's best friends and works in tech, having gone to an elite university for computer science. My husband suggested his help, and I agreed because if anyone could help us make sense of this situation, it was him. When Enrio arrived, A wave of relief washed over me that at least someone could help us uncover what had been done to our yard and, more importantly, to our family. He took one look at the camera we removed and said, his eyes widening with shock and his voice shaking, "This is no toy. This is serious hardware." He further explained that it was a motion-activated wireless surveillance camera capable of streaming live video to a remote server. My heart started to genuinely beat out of my chest as he cracked into the camera system in an attempt to discover what had actually happened here. What we uncovered made me physically ill. The footage displayed my family, Rena, Ethan, my husband and me, playing, swimming and just enjoying our lives together in the backyard. The cameras often caught Rena tanning in her swimsuit, and it was enough to make me sick. But that's not all. The footage was not just being recorded, it was being uploaded to a website. Max managed to trace the IP address associated with the uploads, and my stomach plummeted when he revealed the location. Guess where it led? Right to Max's house. A mixture of fury and helplessness crashed over me. How could he violate our privacy in such a disgustingly perverted manner? The comments accompanying the video scrolled across the screen, revealing strangers making vulgar, predatory comments about my children. My 16-year-old daughter was put on display for creepy men to see and comment on. My husband had to forcibly pull me away from the computer because I was on the verge of a breakdown, ready to march over to Max's house and confront him right there and then. But Enrio calmly talked me down. "If you confront him now, he could destroy the evidence," he said firmly. "Let's gather as much evidence as we can and take it to the police. We have to do this right." For several agonizing days we played the part of the oblivious, idiotic homeowners. It was not hard considering we had been playing this part for close to 2 years. We left most of the cameras in their discreet hiding places, acting as if we hadn't discovered anything. Meanwhile, Enrio set about creating a device to intercept their live feed and record all of Max's activities. Each time I caught sight of Max in his yard, I felt the rage boiling inside me, begging to be released. Every instinct told me to confront him, to accuse him of his vile actions, but I knew I had to keep my cool. If we were going to ensure justice, we needed irrefutable evidence. Day after day, Enrio worked tirelessly, and slowly but surely, the evidence began piling up. It became clear that Max was actively logging into the live feed and uploading new videos. We managed to capture timestamps, IP logs and even screenshots of his activity. It was as if everything was falling into place, but the stress was taking its toll on me. Seriously, there was only so much we could take, and seeing the comments on the videos of my kids, the kids who I had tried so hard to protect and shelter from the world, made me ill. At night, after the kids went to bed, Donald and I would huddle together in the living room with our laptops, poring over what we had gathered. Each detail made the violation feel all the more real, and we often discussed painstakingly how this could have gone unnoticed for so long. We racked our minds about how we had missed the signs, how we had let this man into our children's lives. It was emotionally draining, but it also strengthened our resolve. We could not let Max get away with this, not just for ourselves, but for anyone else he might have targeted. Finally, the sense of urgency became unbearable. I could not stand another second feeling like this man was intruding on our lives. It was time to act. Gathering our evidence, we headed to the police station with a heavy mix of dread and determination. Initially, the officers seemed skeptical of our claims, but once Enrio presented the tech, their demeanor shifted sharply from lazy skepticism to outright horror. A detective rose from his desk, staring at us with wide eyes, and he said, "This is serious. We will get a warrant to search his house." They instructed us to remain nearby while they handled the situation, and while I could not be more glad that Max would soon be far away from my family, I could not help the feeling of dread creeping up on me. The next morning, a chill ran down my spine as I peered out my living room window, my heart racing. My fate was in the hands of law enforcement, and I was not sure how much I trusted them to bring Max to justice. I watched as police officers approached Max's front door, his face morphing from confusion to sheer disbelief as they revealed the warrant. In mere moments, they searched inside his house, and I could hardly breathe as they navigated through the entryway, hauling equipment out of Max's possession. Max tried to play the victim, loudly insisting that he was being framed and claiming he had never hurt anyone, but the evidence did not lie. The layers of his deceit were peeling away, exposing the truth lurking beneath. The officers did not buy his excuses, and neither did we. They promptly arrested him, leading him away in handcuffs. Witnessing that moment was electrifying. After weeks of anxiety and turmoil, it felt like a small victory in an ocean of pain. Later, we received a call from the police to discuss the implications of what they had found. They discovered folders upon folders of footage, not just of my family, but of countless others in the neighborhood, as well as other explicit illegal videos involving kids. Max had been doing this for years, and the realization of the heinous scale of his crimes was just staggering. Knowing we had played a role in stopping him brought a measure of comfort, if not a sense of vindication. Max was charged with illegal surveillance, distribution, and possession of extremely explicit material, along with several other crimes. The website where he had uploaded the videos was promptly shut down, and law enforcement began working tirelessly to identify other victims. As the reality of his actions sank in, I found myself filled with hope that we wouldn't have to be alone in this fight for justice. Max faced years in prison, and in the aftermath, we also filed a lawsuit against him for emotional distress and invasion of privacy. With the settlement money, we installed a comprehensive security system complete with cameras, motion detectors, and reinforced privacy fencing. While it did not erase what had happened, it did provide my family with a much-needed sense of security. Interestingly enough, this whole nightmare also prompted us to reach out to our other neighbors, many of whom were horrified to learn what Max had done. The events brought a surprising sense of solidarity to our community, forging connections where there had only once been distance. My kids have had a hard time making sense of everything, but Rena especially struggled. She told me once that she did not feel safe in her own home anymore, and hearing that broke my heart into a million pieces. No parent ever wants their child to feel that way, and I felt that I had failed her as a mother, unable to keep her safe. We knew right away that we couldn't just push forward and pretend everything was fine. We found a therapist who could work with our whole family, and those first few sessions were heavy. There were tears, anger, and confusion, but little by little those meetings gave us space to open up. Rena and Ethan started sharing their fears and frustrations, and Donald and I did too. We talked honestly about how this had all shaken us, but we also worked to remind the kids that they were safe now and loved. Eventually, we decided to reclaim one of our favorite things. I won't lie to you though, it was hard at first. Stepping out there brought back a flood of memories we'd all rather forget, but we made a point of doing it together, wearing bright, albeit occasionally tacky, swimsuits and bringing back the laughter that Max had tried to steal from us. Slowly our backyard started to feel like ours again, not a place tainted by his horrible actions. This whole ordeal has changed us in ways I never could have imagined. It has made us more aware of the world's dangers, but it's also brought us closer together. We have learned to value every moment we have as a family and to protect our little sanctuary fiercely. We've also decided to do more than just heal. We determined to help others who might be going through something similar. Whether it is speaking out, supporting privacy laws, or just being there for our neighbors, we want to turn this pain into something meaningful. And the next one is a funny story from Rar's malicious compliance, because I feel like the first story was a little bit heavy, so let's continue with a more light-hearted one. It is titled, I Made Fried Late Because You Couldn't Compromise. So a few years ago, I got back into truck driving after my daughter was around 2 to 3 years old. There weren't many companies that would take someone that had been out of the game that long, so I had to settle on one of the bigger companies. What a mistake that was. Before I had this, I had no issues as a professional truck driver with having driver-facing or inward-facing cameras. I don't do anything illegal or stupid behind the wheel, so it didn't matter. But it does now. This company had stuck the camera that faced inwards and outwards along the area where the visor would cover the windshield. As most things like this happen, it was a recordable offense to have the visor not only block the sun from laser beaming me in the face, but having the visor down blocked the camera. I got calls about it constantly. I asked them what I should do. Don't cover the camera, but the sun limits my vision. Well, don't cover the camera. I cannot stick anything on the windshield to block the sun. This is unsafe. What do you want me to do? Don't block the camera. Can you move it somewhere else? No. How am I supposed to see during sunrise and sunset hours? Don't block the camera, was their answer. It came down to them threatening my job and livelihood, and that if I blocked the camera one more time, they would need to remotely deactivate the truck and force me out with a local police escort. So what did I do? Well, I started to find nice safe places to stop every single early morning and evening when I was driving, where the sun would come through the windshield. My dispatcher, understanding the man that he is, asked me why loads were being late and why I was stopping so frequently for so many hours. I told him safety would not be compromised and I cannot freaking see out the window with the sun laser beaming me in the face. I'm not crashing into someone because a damn camera is being blocked when I haven't done anything to warrant this kind of abuse. I apologized to him but told him that this would continue. He was able to schedule loads out to where I had the stopping time, but ultimately they fired me anyway. After 5 months I was told I was unsafe, stupid, and shouldn't drive a truck. I should find work that suited a woman better, and that I would not be hireable anywhere. Even in those sketchy second chance companies where the pay, equipment, and safety is crap. Joke's on them. After 2 years of running for a company that treats me like I'm a human being and not some seating robot, 4 of their little company trucks have been seen by little old me in the ditch or median on I-29 this year after a 2-day winter storm. My truck is still running, currently waiting on unload. The next one is titled Malicious Compliance Done Perfectly. I worked for a grocery store in Australia for close to a decade. It was not terrible, and management treated us with respect for my first few years there. If someone could not make a shift, they would work with us to find a replacement, and we were rarely short-staffed, so worst-case scenarios, things would still run relatively smoothly even if we were missing a few on a given day. Fast forward a few years and the good manager retires, and an assistant manager from a nearby store is promoted to managing this store. Let's call him Brad for the sake of the store. Brad approached his position with an ego, treating the store as his to fix, even though things had been running quite smoothly for years before he was in the picture. Part of his vision of fixing the store was stricter adherence to company-wide guidelines in terms of staffing numbers and leave requests. For example, the amount of staff to be rostered on is determined by the number of customers through our doors each day. Staff who were actually experienced at this location knew that we needed more than what the company guidelines specified to be able to function effectively. So within the first month of Brad's tenure at the store, hours were being cut dramatically across the store, causing chaos as nobody was used to the added workload. When confronted about this by other members of management, he immediately dismissed them, quoting company guidelines. During the same period of time, staff began to notice that any request for leave was being instantly denied by Brad. Now the company guideline is to give at least 2 weeks notice if you know that you will need a day off. It goes without saying that sometimes friends or family will make last-minute plans that you would like to attend, or you cannot work a shift due to compassionate reasons. Prior to Brad, if you needed some time off, it was as simple as honestly communicating your situation with your manager. Almost always were we able to come up with a solution, and taking a day off was never a big deal. Keep in mind these guidelines aren't just that. Just guidelines, not strict rules that must be enforced or something. Store managers are given a rather loose collar from higher management. As long as things are running smoothly and staff are happy, upper management will usually take a rather hands-off approach. They won't micromanage each individual store, ensuring every little corporate guideline is being adhered to, unless there are obvious issues requiring their attention. So now Brad's about a month into his position, and we are short-staffed throughout the store. Everyone is stressed. Requests for leave are being denied due to the lack of staff that Brad caused in the first place. Of course, Brad quotes company policy each and every time he does this. He won't even allow us to organize someone else to cover shifts as it is too much paperwork. It's a Saturday, and I am due to work my regular shift that same night. I then get a call from a friend with a spare ticket to see my favorite artist's sold-out show. I want to go, and I've spoken to a colleague who's willing to cover my shift so I'm not screwing over my team. I then call the store and I speak to Brad, tell him the situation, and that I have someone to cover said shift. Brad predictably gives me the same response that he's been giving everyone else. Sorry, as per Grocery Store X's staffing policy, you must give 2 weeks notice for any time off. It does not matter if someone else is willing to take the shift. So cue my malicious compliance. For a manager who is so into following rules, I was surprised to discover that he never took into account Grocery Store X's sick leave policy. Staff are entitled to paid sick leave for a day without the requirement of a doctor's note. So if you take 2 days or more consecutively, then you need a medical certificate. I call back an hour after my initial call. This time I tell Brad that I've come down with the most terrible headache and that there's no way I can work that night. He does not even reply to me. I can faintly hear him angrily mumble that he'll have to call in a last-minute replacement before hanging up. It didn't take long for staff to catch on to this loophole. Staff needing time off with less than 2 weeks' notice would no longer bring it to their manager's attention immediately, instead opting to call in sick the day of each time. Obviously, this ensured further chaos in terms of lack of staff, a problem I never experienced in my near decade at the store. Brad proceeded to quit after about a month and a half of being manager. Replacing him was the old assistant manager that had been at this location for several years at this point. It took a while to reverse the damage Brad had caused, but things got back to normal with someone who actually knew how to run the store at the helm. And yeah, rip stars, I exactly know this kind of manager. It's those people that think so highly of themselves and think that they can never be wrong and are absolutely better than others. Therefore, it is so satisfying to see them get proven wrong. And to end the video, we will read a funny story from Ars Petty Revenge that you have not heard before. It is titled Petty But I Got My Pliers Back. So I loaned my snap-on pliers to a stranger when I was young, dumb, and poor. Well, to my surprise, they did not return in an hour as the borrower had informed me. I called a few times over the following days and then he decided to tell me to F off. Well, let me tell you, that's the wrong idea, buddy. I called him every 2 hours for 2 days, nothing. I called every hour for 2 days, nothing. Then I opened my flip phone on my toolbox, and every time I walked by or grabbed something, I hit the talk button and walked away. Old flip phone users know that is a radial shortcut that would then leave long voicemails. This went on for over a week until he answered and told me to stop calling. I said, bring my pliers back, and then doubled down on the calling. Middle of the night, get up to talk, go to the bar and just keep hitting talk in my pocket. 3 buddies' phones all talk until his phone never stopped ringing again, ever. I got my pliers back. Now I take a deposit that is big enough that I could buy 2 new tools if loaned. And there you have it. Some of the most disturbing and outrageous neighbor horror stories yet. From hidden cameras violating privacy to entitled HOA presidents trying to steal homes. It's unbelievable how far some people will go for control and personal gain. But as we've seen, standing your ground, gathering evidence, and fighting back always pays off in the end. What would you have done in these situations? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe for more insane real-life stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.